A very big welcome to Empower Her Podcast. I'm so excited. The Peace I Built. My journey to self-worth, self-love, and empowerment by Jayne Hansford. Now, Jayne is living proof that empowerment is not a destination, but a decision. After 3 decades in a marriage defined by control, emotional isolation, and self-abandonment, she chose to dismantle the narratives that kept her small. And she rebuilt her life from within. Through 2 years of intentional growth, integrating yoga, spiritual mentorship, support, and deep reflection, she reestablished self-worth, self-love, and agency. Today, she lives with herself, not by herself, in a house of life she consciously created. A very big welcome to Empower Her Podcast, and we're going to share chapter 14 with you today here. I know as a woman, a lot of us will be really interested in hearing this podcast with Jayne. So Jayne, a very big welcome to you, and thank you so much for being here today on the Empower Her Podcast and for your incredible chapter in this book. I'll let you say hi, and then I want to kick it off.
Good morning, Catherine. Thank you, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
And a big welcome to all our listeners. We are so glad that you're with us today. You know, in your book, Jayne, you say empowerment begins the precise moment a woman chooses herself. How do you know when that is? What determines that moment?
When I decided I needed to take action, I had a vision in my head of where I wanted to go and how I wanted to feel at the end of it. And I took the first step, which was finding a psychologist to help me process what I'd been through and how to move forward. And just those first steps, just even picking up the telephone to make the call, to make an appointment, I got off the phone and I thought, wow, I've done it. I've started. I've done something for me. And it was just a moment of goosebumps and just, I can do this. Just that first step, I had that feeling of empowerment. It was instant. I'm going to do
Wow.
this. I've done it. I've taken that first step.
Wow, that first step. You know, you say at 58 years old, a divorced single woman with 3 adult children, I never felt so sure of myself, courageous, authentic, independent, strong, mentally and physically. And this is because you spent 2 years going through those steps. In the evenings, you say it's your practice to take time to reflect and give gratitude for the people and events that shaped the last 24 hours. How many years have you been doing that for?
That started in that same moment I decided to start the work. I started practicing yoga at the same time. And you know, if anyone's ever done yoga, Shavasana, and part of the practice is gratitude. So I really didn't start consciously giving gratitude until then. And then it just became a practice, like everything, it's practice, and just became a daily thing for me, just to, let's say, reflect on my day, people I've met. You've got to be grateful for the wonderful things, for the not so wonderful things, and the lessons learned.
Wow. So we want to head now into that disempowered part to let our listeners know a little bit more. And of course, once you've got Empower Her book and you read the chapter, you'll go a lot deeper there as well. But prior to separating, you were talking about the time that you were disempowered. And you said to play on the title of this book, Empower Her, my journey is one from disempowerment to empower her. You existed in disempowered. And How did that feel?
It it's lonely, it's isolating when you are feeling like your partner has control over your day, your feelings, your emotions, your actions. You have, you are disempowered. And the other thing is when you blame your partner, he says this, he doesn't say that, he does this, he doesn't do that. You take on that role of victim. You become, when you're blaming somebody else for your situation or your circumstances, for me, I became a victim of my own circumstances. That is disempowering.
It's interesting, Jane. I was listening to this comedian just last night, and he was talking about marriage and how all it bloody ever is compromise. It's your turn for where we choose this time, and so I have to suck it up, and now it's my turn, so you have to suck it up. And I was listening to him, I'm like, is it like that? Like, been married 33 years, and I'll be honest with the audience as well. It's not a bed of roses. My husband had a breakdown 16 years ago. And, there are many times that I'm sure he made himself feel disempowered. And because of that, he will try to disempower me at times as well. Because, how we're feeling, we also want our partners to suffer that feeling, I think, at times too, right? So, you know, you've got some beautiful quotes here at the end of the book, but I don't want to get to that just yet. I just want to get to, you know, now that you can reflect and look back at that and you see other marriages. I've got two questions. Now, what would you say to people that are married? What would you say to women that have stepped out? And sorry, one more question. Did you reach out to your girlfriends to let them know what was happening?
Um, no, all of my friends are married. I know very few people that have separated or divorced. It was a very personal thing. And, it's embarrassing to admit to people what's going on behind closed doors. So I didn't share it with many people at all. In terms of what would I say to other people who are married, I'm not telling people to go out there and get divorced. It's not the answer, but you need to find your voice. That I think is the most important thing, is to find your voice and use your voice. And as a wife and a mother, I think we all know we put ourselves last. We put our children first, our families first, our work first, before we do anything for ourselves. And, at the end of most days or weeks, we're lucky if there's anything left for ourselves. So that would be the other thing, is to do some things for yourself. Find some things that make you feel empowered, that make you feel like you have some currency in your life and how you're living it and what you're doing.
Can you, as a woman, be empowered yourself? So, you know, and I agree, it's really important that we also have a hobby that we love, or something that we love, and that our husbands have a hobby that they love and something that they love. Otherwise, you're suffocating each other a little, right?
Yeah, well, and
Um,
yes, my circumstance always also was I had to ask permission to do anything, a hobby or anything that I loved. And that often wasn't given. So that
mm,
was a struggle.
yeah, and that's where that control comes in. And people don't realize, I don't think they realize they're doing it. which is really, really interesting in life, whether it's male or whether it's female, but we've got to let each partner live as well, and I know personally, I as an Aquarian, we like our freedom. So if someone said to me I couldn't do something, I'll say, watch me. So, we're interesting beasts for sure. Um, and it's interesting, coming back to that compromise when the partner doesn't compromise, when you are having to ask them for everything, or when you are having to ask them, even though you're working with them for your share of some money to use, that's when that's a big red flag, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's when finding the courage to use your voice
Yeah.
and let them know it's not okay.
Mm.
That's where you need to start.
And did you had the decision been made before you used your voice, or did you use your voice and then make the decision?
I never felt safe to use my voice.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was there. If I did speak up, it could be twisted and turned and used against me, and not in that instant, but in future
Yeah.
conversations and
Yeah.
discussions as well. So
And for those listening, the best news is it's not all doom and gloom, because Jayne has the most wonderful relationship with her uh, partner, who's now her ex, her husband, who's now her ex, um, you know, and it has empowered the whole family, which has been incredible to be able to stand up. Sometimes makes the biggest difference in everyone's life. So, Jayne, one of the fastest growing statistics, of course, is homelessness of our women from their 50s over. Why do you
yeah.
think this is happening in Australia?
So a very typical scenario is women get married, they will often forfeit their careers to support their husbands and to raise a family. And I know that sounds very old-fashioned and stereotypical, but it does happen. And once you give up that career pathway that you once have, not only are you giving up your ability to work and be employed later in life, you're losing all your superannuation as well. So you're losing all your savings and anything that you may have been able to set aside to support yourself later in life. So once you make the decision to leave, until there is a financial agreement with your ex-partner, and that can take years if it has to go through courts. Women are out there unemployable because they haven't worked for 15 to 20 years and no money to access, no savings set aside. And so they can end up living in their cars. You see ads everywhere for women wanting to house sit. And often those women are women who just need a roof over their heads.
Oh, Jane, it's sad, and it'd be nice if somehow I don't know if there's a solution, but let's keep on going with our podcast today. The beginning of Empowered, believing that the journey towards living the life I imagined would eventually deliver me to a prized destination of empowerment. I was delightfully caught unaware to discover I was wrong. Empowerment arrived not at the end, but with the decision to confront my circumstances with forgiveness for myself in my heart. And I know that you said empowerment also began with that first phone call, where you knew you were actually doing something for you. You were choosing and your mental health and all those things. So, and this is in the book, but with the decision to confront my circumstances with forgiveness for myself in my heart. Let us know a little bit more about that.
So that came from the realization once I took responsibility for my part in the relationship's demise, and I examined how did I get here? What did I contribute? So stopped blaming and took self-responsibility. And then I realized I should have used my voice. I should have sought compromise. I should have given myself more agency in the relationship. I avoided conflict, I stayed quiet, and I took the path of least resistance. I did that. That was my choice, not blaming him for, like, say, what he says or doesn't say or do and not do, but going, this is how I chose to deal with this for 30 years. I had to forgive myself for that.
Yeah, that's a big thing, isn't it? Because it's never just one person. And people go, "I'll meet you halfway." I'm always like, "Where's halfway?" You have to go the whole way, right? Like no one knows. And in the book, you've got this quote here by Sharon Pope. He has he has a big part in the breakdown of his marriage, and he may never own that part. He may never apologize. He may never be able to understand or acknowledge your pain, but you played a role too. Even if it's only 10% of the problem, even if it was only 1%, you played the same role in the relationship's demise. And that 1% is your path to freedom. So, and it's powerful. I know that ego, because I work a lot um, with ego, and that seems to be the thing that a lot of men, and look, I've worked in a lot of countries. Australia is, sorry guys, a little bit more of a boys' club, and it is acknowledged when people are coming here and I'm on business that this is what the women are finding, and we have found it. And unfortunately, it does feel, and he may never apologize because of his ego. They don't see it at all. And control is part of ego, right?
That's right.
So the only thing that we have control of is our actions, reactions, and our lack of action, right? So you may have been living with that lack of action, building that resentment until the time you couldn't take it anymore. And Jayne, I know Jayne personally. She is one of the most beautiful women, strong, courageous, can do anything. But I also have a belief that we shouldn't go through things alone. I also have a belief that we should reach out. The world is here to connect, and we should reach out to our girlfriends when we need to. Trust me, one of the first things I learned at Sunday school was ask and you shall receive. So you'll know if anything's happening with me. I will be speaking out. But that was one of those big things, Jayne, that you suffered in that relationship, not speaking out. Are you speaking out now for what
Yes,
you need?
yes, I certainly am. And part the my friendship group is quite that I had when we were married, and I still have now. That's been more than 20 years, those people. What I have done when I started this journey was I met an incredible group of women through Heidi Meyer's Pajama Summit and through Jeanette Allam Hill's Lionhearted Foundation. And that was one of the best things that could have happened to me. I surrounded myself with empowered women, not only empowered women, but women who were so open and willing to share what works, what doesn't work, but a group of women who just offer safety to ask for help and know that they've got your back. So
Yeah.
finding your tribe certainly is very, very true.
That's beautiful. And that's the big thing, isn't it? Finding your tribe. So don't go it alone. Sometimes in our deepest, our hardest parts, we do everything ourselves. And then after we find our tribe, maybe we can find our tribe as we're going through.
Yeah, definitely.
as we're going through life. I feel that there's like you said, uh, you never used the word failed with marriage, but you said you felt embarrassed, for instance. And I know that there is that. Like I can imagine, if I walk away too, it'd be like, well, why couldn't we make it work? What was missing? What could I have done? And I think that's the blame game. And that's where we
But
have to
you said
forgive
it then,
ourselves.
Catherine. You said, what could I have done?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the blame game.
Yeah.
And that's where we have to forgive ourselves and go, you know what? Whatever you did or didn't do, it's okay now.
That's
We can move on from here. I love that the past is the past, in an instant, even what we've said is now the past. And being in the present moment is where we look after the next, 3 decades. And so it's what's happening in the present. But Jane, relationships, they have ups and downs, right? Sometimes the woman's more in control of things, sometimes the man's more in control of things. When do you know when isn't it healthy?
I think it's not healthy when your own values start to be compromised. When things start happening or being said or done in a certain way that you know in your heart and in your gut, this isn't okay. This is not in alignment with me and who I am.
Yeah. And so I'm getting a picture in my head too of that line, drawing that line. Maybe we should all do this. What is that line? What does it look like? What's under the line behavior? Is it swearing at you? Is it calling you names? Is it um, saying one thing but never doing it and leaving you not feeling like you can trust somebody? Like, what is that underlying? What is totally unacceptable by you? And maybe we should be doing that and actually showing our partner and asking our partner to do their below the line. What's their below the line acceptance? And maybe if we both know, because I know everyone's values can be different, but what if we both start to understand each other a bit more? What is that below the line behavior? So when it's happening, we go, hey, that's the below the below the line behavior
Yeah.
that is not accepted by me. And it's funny because as you said that, I got that visual. And and as men get older, they're not going to get better, they tell us. Sorry, ladies, they get grumpier. And so I'm just thinking maybe I need to do a little below the line work for my husband at the
And it's
moment.
all very well to do the below the line. That's great. You communication,
Yeah,
communication, communication, communication. You have to use your voice and
yeah,
let them know.
yeah. Let them know. And it's interesting too, because I want to know too with mine, like what, because I'll go, well, what upsets you? What makes you get angry at me? And he'll say, oh, nothing. Obviously, there's something. It could be just breathing because he wants to play golf. Who knows? But so I think it is really, really important. It is important that we have those conversations. And sometimes if the if they don't understand that and they continue to do the below the line behavior, then that this is so many red flags. This is unhealthy. It becomes unhealthy for you, and it's time to get out.
And leaving those conversations too late um, is real. If you haven't used your voice from early on, that becomes a normalized behavior for them. Your response to it becomes normalized, and the hurt and the damage is done. And so, if you do finally get to the place where you want to have those conversations, just be mindful it's not too late.
Yeah, it's not too late. Nothing's ever too late.
No.
And even if you go through that horrible, messy divorce, or you don't go through a great divorce, it's never too late to still over time repair and have those conversations if possible. one of your headers is I live with myself in the house of life. Now, it was really interesting because my husband fell ill and left work, and then I had to take up work, and I started a training company that went international, and I started working around the world. And one of the jobs took me to Saudi Arabia for 6 weeks. We had a really big discussion about it. It was paying well, but I had to leave my family. And at that time in Saudi, you could be hit with sticks for not wearing everything correctly. So it was still pretty serious. The day I flew in, which I had no idea, and it is in the book, 40 people were beheaded in Chop Chop Square, and our plane fell out of the sky. So that was interesting times. Um, but I spent that 6 weeks living by myself, and I've been in a marriage at that stage maybe 25 years with the same person, 26 years. And so you wonder, is there a codependency or anything with that? But we both did well. We both thrived. I loved living by myself. I loved actually going and buying my own food for myself. I loved having my kitchen clean and preparing the food for myself. Um, at nighttime in a gigantic bed, that's generally when we'll have a conversation, or, you'll touch feet or do all those wonderful things that you do um, when you're married. And then other times, there's a hell of a lot of snoring, and you just go, I just need to sleep. So it was interesting. Those 6 weeks, I really enjoyed looking after myself. And it was a time I realized that I didn't need my husband, but I wanted to be with my husband, which was great. And 6 weeks is long enough to see, like, I don't need anyone. I can do everything. I can do everything myself. I can take my rubbish out. I can do the jobs I don't always like doing, but I could do everything. And I think sometimes when people are in a marriage for a long time, you've each got your own chores. And so how would it feel when the person isn't there? And I guess because of my work, John's had months at home by, a month at home by himself, or 3 weeks or 2 weeks. And so we've both learned quite easily to be able to have that life that can that we can look after ourselves. We can do the 100% of everything if we need to. And it's not a bad thing for anyone listening if you have been in a long-term relationship and you've never had that time away by yourself. It's great to get to know yourself again.
Yes.
It's a wonderful experience. And
Yes.
as we're coming into the wrap up, I live with myself in the house of love. Let us know a bit more about that, Jayne.
So I think, like I say, I choose to say I live with myself, not by myself, or that I live alone. I think using those phrases is disempowering. To say I live with myself. And it's that living with that free will is just, for me, just opens my heart. I love that. And it's being authentic to me. When you're living with yourself, you are not trying to please someone else or meet someone else's expectations. You can be authentically yourself. And then once you're doing that in your own home, you can take that out into the world because you know what it is. You know what it is to live authentically. And so you can step out that door and take that with you.
Jayne, you have empowered so many of us. Like, for us that actually get to witness what you've done and to witness your journey, it's really, really incredible. In your book, you said, I've discovered it is infinitely better to be living with myself than be someone who wishes they were. Sometimes people suggest I am lucky to live on my own. You say it was not luck. The desire and the will to overcome fear, to take the necessary steps forward, is what put me here. Luck is really interesting. I always say luck is labor under correct knowledge. Like, we work hard to get lucky. People go, oh, you're lucky, you travel the world. No, I work really, really hard. Like, I wish I was in your suitcase. No, you don't. There's a lot in that suitcase. Um, so luck, you made your own luck the day you chose you and picked up that phone and made that phone call. From there, it was labor under correct knowledge. You worked hard to get the results where you are today.
I
Um,
did. And, you know, it is just delightful to look back from what was my ground zero. And that's something only I can truly know. And to know where I've come, how far I've come, it was hard work, but it was worth it. It was so worth it to be where I am now.
so worth it. And for the encouragement and the intelligence and the humanity that you have shown everyone going through the process. A lady was speaking of it the other day, and she said, "Oh, about her children, what would they think?" And I thought, well, if they don't know you by now, we've got to trust that they'll still see us as their mums, as the human being that loves them, as exactly who we are, because we're
The
still
other
that
thing to
person.
remember with your children is they were there. They were there.
Mm.
They were living it. They weren't oblivious to what was going on. So for them to see some resolution for both of their parents,
Mm.
um, is a great thing for them to witness. Yeah.
Jane, do you have your Empower Her book there?
Yes, I do.
Fantastic. So instead of me reading this is your empowering statements for living with myself in the
Mhm.
house of life. I was going to read those out, but I'd love you to read them.
Sure.
So
Thank you.
you've got five there on page 155.
Thank you, Catherine. Empowerment begins the precise moment a woman chooses herself. I love myself. That is why I live with myself, not because no one loves me. I am not what society assumes of a woman living alone. I am not a failure, and I am not lonely. I accept living with myself, not by myself, as a choice that brings me peace. As a woman who chooses freedom and lives with herself and loves it, I'm an inspiration to others.
Yes, you are. Thank you. And so these are the statements for living with yourself, and it's beautiful. And maybe if you're listening to this, there could be one of those you want to write down, or perhaps a couple, but they're so powerful. I want to really thank you, Jane, as we wrap up. So that is the podcast uh, right now happening for Empower Her, and this is my book where everything every author is telling me is going into. So I really want to thank you very much for sharing that, Jane. And so as we come to the end of this podcast, Jane, is there anything else that you would like to let everyone know before we roll the dice?
I think we mentioned it before. It's never too late. Don't feel that you're stuck because you're a certain age and you've been there this long and it's not worth trying to fix. Now, just if you need to make the changes, if you need to do the reflection, look at yourself, choose yourself, and see where that empowerment takes you.
Wow. All right, are you ready for the roll of the dice?
Ready?
What number have you got?
Three.
Three. Three today, the fear factor. Ooh.
Mm.
What still scares you a little even today? Well, even now, presently.
What scares me is falling in love again. That terrifies me. There's still some work to be done on trusting myself to know that I will not be that person again that does not use their voice. It's trusting myself that no matter what the situation, I will stand in my power and I will use my voice. And I will draw that line and communicate what's okay and what's not okay. So there's work, still work. That's life, isn't it? It's an ongoing
It is like
process.
we are a work in progress. And Wayne Bennett, one of my absolute favourite coaches here in Australia, I remember listening to him one day and he said, "Do you think you know everything, you might as well die." And so it's kind of fun having something that we're a little fearful of because it's a challenge now. Yeah.
That's
And
right.
the word change sits in the word challenge, which means something needs to change. Yeah. The way we think, the way we see it, the way we act. So I'll be here cheering you on for that challenge
Thank you.
in the next part of our lives. Thank you for being so open, so honest, Jayne. It's been an absolute honor and pleasure having you on the podcast today and being your friend in life.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. Stay tuned. The next one will be coming up very soon. Thank you.